Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice little 6-game NBA slate for you that starts at 7:30. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It really helps the channel a lot. I really do appreciate it. We have a very interesting slate here. We have a bunch of injuries to talk about, so let's go ahead and get started here. For the Pelicans, Zion and McCollum are both questionable. Daniels and Alvarado are out. For the Pacers, Nesmith is questionable. For the Mavs, Exum is doubtful. For the Raptors, Podol is questionable. For the Grizzlies, Morant, Bain, Smart, Pippen, Kennard, and Conchar are all out. For the Timberwolves, Anderson is doubtful. For the Cavs, Porter Jr. and Thompson are out. For the Bulls, Caruso is doubtful, and Levine, Williams, and Craig are out. For the Kings, Fox is questionable. For the Lakers, LeBron is questionable. Wood, Vanderbilt, and Vincent are out. For the Clippers, Paul George is out. So lots of questionables and some injuries here. They're going to affect the slate. Obviously, if LeBron was to miss, that would open up some guys. If Fox misses, that would change a lot. With Anderson doubtful, that does open up some for the Timberwolves a little bit, but not a ton. Obviously, if Podol were to miss for the Raptors, that would give a boost. And then Zion and McCollum both have some. If they one or both of them don't play, that would influence some changes. Who we would like with the Pelicans. So let's go ahead and look at our core play here. We have Norman Powell. Now, Norman Powell should draw the start today with Paul George already ruled out, and he played very well in the last game with Paul George out. He scored 30 fantasy points. I expect him to get close to 25. He's been over 20 the last three, which give him a lot of opportunity. He's going to get plenty of minutes in this one. At least he should. He should get in the mid 20s. Obviously, he does have a lower floor, because he's a little bit inconsistent that way. But he's not. I mean, they got Kawhi Leonard and uh, James Harden as well. So, but Powell has played well throughout the season when he gets the minutes, and so he's a definite great option on the slate. I think he's going to be very popular, and he is a core play for me. I'm going to go top to bottom now, and who I like the most here. So we're going to start with Luka. Now Luka has been terrorizing teams throughout the season. That's why he's priced at 12K. He dropped a 45-9 14 game on Cleveland yesterday. His range today is 55 to 75 fantasy points. I do think he has a lot of opportunity in this one, as it is a pretty good matchup for him, and he scored 60 fantasy points against Toronto last time he played him. However, that's what he needs fantasy-wise, so obviously we want him to get more than that, but he's definitely in play. However, the value today is somewhat all over the place, so obviously if injuries open up value, you could definitely go with him or Joker, who has absolutely been dominating teams as well. He's had three straight over 70 fantasy points, and he just had a absolutely monster game the last game against Golden State Warriors. Ever since the All-Star break, he has been absolutely unstoppable. So, and we can see he's had three straight triple doubles. If he can get a triple double again today, and this is a plus matchup against Sacramento, that definitely gives him some potential. I will note the two games before the All-Star break, two of the last three games before the All-Star break, he played Sacramento, didn't do quite as good. However, he might have just been coasting a little bit at that point. He still averages 56 fantasy points a game so far this season against Sacramento. This game's also at home, and he tends to shoot the ball a little bit better there, and his assist numbers are higher as well. So I think he's a viable option and a good contrarian option off of Doncic. Well, I do think Luka will be the more popular option of the two. Then we're going to look at some guys from the Clippers here, and we're going to start with Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. So James Harden, I'm going to talk about first, simply because I believe he's going to be more used today than Kawhi is. Without Paul George, he's going to get a lot of opportunity here, and he's going to be a very popular option on this slate. He's probably going to be the most popular guy, over $8,000. He has decent upside here given the situation. However, I do think that going to a little bit safer version of Kawhi might actually be the sneaky way to go today, as the Lakers don't play a ton of defense, and I imagine honestly that Kawhi and James Harden can both eat in this game. But Kawhi has been a little bit more consistent lately. James Harden has struggled a little bit more shooting wise the last few games, and so I do think that Kawhi does have some utility here. He's also averaging 53 fantasy points a game against the Lakers this season, and with LeBron questionable, which even if LeBron plays, I don't think there's going to be too much risk for Kawhi here. I mean, Harden is priced fine as well, but I'm currently liking Kawhi a little bit better, and so I am probably going to, he is very borderline to me being a core play here, so do keep that in mind. Looking at Jamal Murray for Denver, now he had been kind of roughing it before the All Star break. And I think there was quite a few guys that needed a couple of a week off to kind of recover some of their little injuries and stuff. But Murray had a bad game against Sacramento right before the All-Star break, but he looks like he's at full strength as the last two games he's been over 38 fantasy points, and that's about where he needs to be here. Now that he's under $8,000, he's definitely worth a look here. His assist numbers in the last game was down, but he has a lot of opportunity as he should shoot the ball pretty well. And this one, as Sacramento is going to be running a gun, so he's going to have a lot of opportunity to have a big game here. And he's priced pretty fairly. He's under $8,000, which is nice, and that gives him a lot of utility here. Looking over at Toronto here, we have two guys from Toronto that we do like. We're going to start with RJ Barrett, as he feels a little bit safer, being a little cheaper than Quickly. He's been pretty consistent for the most part for Toronto, though he has had a couple games before the All-Star break that he didn't quite bring it. But for most of the time since he's been traded to Toronto, he's been in the 35 to 45 range. And I do like his potential here, as he does have that low 40s upside, and he only needs 34 fantasy points to pay off here. He looks like someone that will be considered a lot on the slate as a decent price, and he's definitely somebody that I'm considering as well. So, if we have him and Kawhi here, that's definitely a good starting point for this one. But Emmanuel Quickly for Toronto also is in play today, as he does draw some good potential here, though he does have that low floor that he does sometimes randomly have, because he does tend to be somewhat scoring dependent from a fantasy perspective. Even though he does get some assists and rebounds, he does need to score in decent double figures to really pay off. And he does have tendency to have off days where he shoots, 2 for 12 or something. But he is a 3-point shooter, and he's been shooting the three pretty well the last few games, and so that gives him a lot of potential ever since All-Star break. As you can see, he's hit almost 14 threes in those last three. Now, that hasn't been against very tough opponents, and today he's going to be facing off against Doncic and Kyrie, so it definitely could be a troublesome game for him. So he's squarely a GPP play today, but he's definitely interesting on the slate. Looking at Chicago here, I do like a Desan move for them. Now, his price is slowly rising up more with Caruso doubtful and Levine already out, as well as Williams and Craig. Dosunmu has been playing a lot of minutes lately, and he's been paying off at quite a few of these games. He's getting close to the point where his price has come up enough where he's not a must-play, but he's still a pretty solid play here. Now, I will note that the one game that he has had a pretty rough game against in the last several games since he's been starting was against Cleveland, and he only scored 20 fantasy points, which obviously would be too low at his current price. But he definitely has some potential here. Obviously, he does need to get the assist and rebounds to really pay off here, and that's definitely possible in this matchup, but it's going to be a slower down game, and he hasn't fared very well against Cleveland this season, so right now he's kind of a contrarian play and a GPP only play. And then I want to talk about two guys that I think are probably going to have some usage today that I'm probably going to fade myself. Simply because they're kind of drawing some high risk, high reward here. And one of those guys is going to be Andre Drummond for Chicago. Now, he has played, interestingly enough, he's played 27 minutes in 4 of the past 8 games. And in those 4 games, he's done very well. The catch is that he's had 4 games where he hasn't got as many minutes, and he's underperformed at this price. Now, that his price isn't terrible today, so he's going to be popular. Not only that, but one of the last few games that he played over 20 minutes was against Cleveland, and he scored 32 fantasy points in that game with a double-double. That's kind of what he can do in these situations. But he definitely carries some risk because Cleveland is a slower down team, and I don't know that he's going to play that many minutes. He's been inconsistent with the minutes, so he's a concern. But he is cheap, and so he's definitely worth a look, and I do think he's going to be pretty popular on the slate. The other guy that I'm going to look at is Terrence Mann for the Clippers as well. Now, Mann has been consistently inconsistent throughout the season. He has an extremely low floor, but the last 4 games, he's been over 22 fantasy points in all of them, including 25, 44, and 27 the last 3. He's got a favorable matchup here against the Lakers. However, he does have that low floor. His minutes have not changed a ton. I mean, he's got a few more minutes with Paul George out potentially, but he still has that low floor. But he's nice and dirt cheap, so he's kind of a Hail Mary play, and he's definitely worth a look. But he's probably somebody I'm going to fade on the slate just because I'm probably not going to need to pay that far down for a guy on this one based on what I'm looking at this point. Because right now with these 3 guys in the lineup, I still have $6,000 about per player, and I can find other ways to kind of save money that isn't such isn't as questionable as he is. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. Obviously, once we get the news on some of these injuries, that will definitely help us get a better idea on the lineup. But until then, this is me, and have a nice day, guys.